Ever wondered which pasta chains are so bad you should avoid them at all costs? And which two are actually worth it? Picture limp noodles drowning in gluey Alfredo or a mall slice that looked better under the heat lamp. But what if behind the soggy breadsticks, a couple of spots still serve bowls worth your appetite? Can you guess which? Let's kick things off with the chain that tricks you with breadsticks but sinks you with sauce: Olive Garden. Walk through the doors of Olive Garden and you are greeted by the smell of garlic and warm bread, the promise of a full meal for a fair price, and the illusion of a cozy Italian family kitchen. The soft breadsticks arrive quickly, brushed with butter and garlic powder, and for the first few minutes you might think you made a good choice. The salad bowl comes next, tossed with sharp red onions, croutons, and that famous dressing. It feels like comfort food, a reliable stop on the road or a safe pick for family dinners. But the magic fades fast once the pasta lands on your table. Take the Alfredo, for example. What should be a creamy balance of cheese, cream, and nutmeg arrives more like a thick paste, heavy with salt, clinging to noodles that have been cooked and held long before you ordered. Instead of a dish that feels fresh, it tastes microwaved and rushed. The marinara, often served over the spaghetti, leans towards sweetness rather than depth, more like candy than tomato sauce simmered with herbs. It leaves you thirsty, and not in the way a good Italian meal makes you crave wine or water, but in the way that makes you wonder how much sugar they added. And then there are the portion sizes. Olive Garden loves to lean into abundance, serving bowls that look generous but mask the fact that the pasta itself is often bland filler. The sauces cover up the lack of texture, and the meatballs or chicken toppings taste like they were made for mass production rather than flavor. You can leave full, yes, but it is the kind of fullness that feels heavy, not satisfied. Price-wise, Olive Garden sits in that middle tier. A meal for two can quickly run into $30 or $40 once you add drinks and appetizers. For that amount, many diners hope for a fresher experience, not reheated pasta and sauce from a plastic bag. The value lies almost entirely in the breadsticks and salad, and once you are past those, the charm fades. Some loyal fans will argue that Olive Garden is about more than the food. It is about predictability, a place where you know exactly what you will get. And to be fair, predictability can be comforting. But for a chain that markets itself as affordable Italian dining, the shortcuts are too obvious. The flavors do not honor Italian cooking so much as they imitate it for speed and consistency. Can you hack Olive Garden? Some swear by ordering only the soup, salad, and breadsticks combination. Others say to stick to the soups like zuppa toscana, where the flavors feel less processed. But if the highlight of a pasta chain is everything except the pasta, it tells you where it really belongs on a list like this. Have you ever gone in for the breadsticks and left wondering why the pasta was the weak link at Olive Garden? Coming in hot from the drive-thru, here is fast food pasta that should have stayed boxed up: Fazoli's. Fazoli's has built its brand on the idea that you can have pasta as quickly as you can have a cheeseburger. The concept sounds appealing. Italian-style dishes ready in minutes, served with unlimited breadsticks, all at fast food prices. For people on the go, that sounds like a dream, but reality sets in the moment you peel back the lid of your takeout container. The pasta often comes overcooked, noodles limp from sitting in water too long before being reheated. The sauces, ladled quickly for speed, range from watery to gluey, depending on the batch. Take their spaghetti with meat sauce. Instead of a rich, slow-cooked flavor, you often get a thin, acidic tomato base with meat that tastes like it was stretched with fillers. It is a shadow of what real Italian sauce should be. Then there is the Alfredo. At its best, Alfredo is indulgent but balanced, creamy without being cloying. At Fazoli's, it tends to swing in extremes, either too watery to cling to the pasta or too thick and salty, leaving you with a coating on your tongue that feels more artificial than fresh. Pair that with garlic breadsticks that can taste more like buttered hot dog buns, and the illusion of Italian comfort food breaks down fast. Price-wise, Fazoli's leans on affordability, with many meals under $10. But here is the catch. Even at that low cost, the quality does not match the promise. Diners leave not only unsatisfied, but sometimes still hungry. That is because the food fills space without delivering flavor. For families on a budget, that might be acceptable once in a while, but for a true dining experience, it is a letdown. The fast food setting also strips away the warmth that makes pasta chains appealing. You do not linger at Fazoli's. You eat quickly, throw away the plastic fork, and move on. There is no sense of hospitality, no attempt to make the meal feel like more than fuel. It is pasta treated as drive-through filler. Is there a way to make Fazoli's work? Some suggest sticking with the pizza or side dishes where expectations are lower. Others say to load up on breadsticks and skip the pasta altogether. But again, if you are avoiding the pasta at a pasta chain, the verdict is clear. Would you ever trust a drive-thru for pasta, or do you think some foods just should not be rushed like at Fazoli's? On paper, it is classy, but in practice, it is crayons and bland plates. Macaroni Grill. Macaroni Grill once had an aura of sophistication compared to other pasta chains. Dim lighting, white tablecloths, and bottles of wine on display suggested a step above casual dining. Guests could even doodle on the paper table covers with crayons, giving it a playful, family-friendly touch. But beneath the charm, the food often falls short of its promise. Order their so-called signature pasta dishes, and you will often find that the presentation outweighs the flavor. Sauces taste muted, leaning on cream or oil without much seasoning to carry them. Noodles, while plated neatly, lack the freshness of handmade pasta, and instead have the slightly rubbery bite of something pre-cooked and reheated. Even the chicken and shrimp dishes meant to feel premium can arrive overcooked, leaving you chewing rather than savoring. One of the biggest disappointments is portion balance. Macaroni Grill tends to pile on the extras: thick bread, heavy oil drizzles, oversized vegetables, while the pasta itself plays a supporting role. Instead of leaving you satisfied, it leaves you stuffed with bread and oil, questioning why the centerpiece of the restaurant feels like an afterthought. Prices reflect the upscale image. A meal for two can easily reach $50 or more once you add drinks and dessert. At that level, diners expect something more memorable. But too often, the meals are forgettable, blending into the background of chain dining experiences that promise more than they deliver. Can Macaroni Grill be redeemed? Some point to the open kitchen concept, where you can watch the chefs cook as part of the appeal. Others enjoy the create-your-own pasta option, which gives diners some control over flavors. But even then, the outcome depends heavily on ingredients that feel mass-produced rather than crafted with care. The nostalgic side of Macaroni Grill is strong. For many, it was the place of family gatherings, birthday dinners, or first dates. That warm association is real, and for that reason, people return. But when you strip away the nostalgia and judge only the food, it struggles to hold its ground. Do you think the charm of Macaroni Grill comes from the food itself, or is it mostly the memories of eating there with family? You have seen it glowing under mall food court lights, but one bite tells you the truth. Sparrow. There is something almost comforting about walking through a shopping mall, hearing the echoes of music bouncing off the tile floor, smelling popcorn from the movie theater, and seeing a hot pizza or pasta dish displayed under a bright heat lamp. That is where Sparrow makes its living. It is not a destination restaurant. It is not a place you drive to for dinner with friends. It is the spot you stumble across when you are carrying shopping bags and hunger sneaks up on you. But the trouble is, once you buy a slice of their baked ziti pizza or order a plate of pasta, the charm fades faster than the overhead fluorescent lights. The pasta, often sitting ready for a quick scoop, rarely tastes fresh. Noodles soften to the point of mush because they sit too long. Sauces, instead of smelling like slow-cooked tomatoes and garlic, often come across as flat, acidic, and heavy. If you try their signature baked ziti, you might expect gooey melted cheese and a rich bite. Instead, you often get a dish that looks good under a heat lamp, but tastes bland and lifeless once you dig in. The cheese stretches in strings but carries little flavor. The sauce feels rushed, with no depth of herbs or seasoning. Sparrow thrives on volume and speed. In a food court, the goal is not to impress you, but to serve you quickly before you change your mind and head to a burger stand. That speed comes at the cost of quality. Pasta is a dish that rewards care. It likes being cooked to order, sauced at the last second, and served hot. At Sbarro, the pasta has already given up before it reaches your fork. Price-wise, Sbarro is not cheap enough to forgive its flaws. A plate of pasta can run close to $10 or $12, and once you add a drink, you are already near fast casual restaurant prices. For that money, people expect more than food that looks better than it tastes. The value is hard to find because the memory of eating there rarely sticks in a good way. Some people defend Sparrow for its role as comfort food nostalgia. For those who grew up in the 1990s and early 2000s, it was the reward after a day of shopping or a quick meal before catching a movie. The red and green logo itself can spark memories of simpler times, but nostalgia alone cannot make bland pasta taste good. Can Sparrow be hacked? Maybe. If you stick with a giant pizza slice, especially one fresh out of the oven, you might find some satisfaction. But when it comes to pasta, the verdict is harsh. It is food court filler, not food worth seeking out. Have you ever grabbed a plate of pasta at Sparrow only to wish you had picked the pretzel stand instead? Once a local favorite, now it is more faded than flavorful. Bertucci's. Bertucci's once carried a reputation for being different from the average chain. Its brick oven pizzas and hearty pasta dishes gave it an edge over mall-style food. Families gathered there for birthdays, Sunday dinners, or even a casual date night. The warm smell of bread baking in the oven was part of the atmosphere. You could almost believe you were stepping into something better than the average chain restaurant. But over time, what made Bertucci's special began to slip away. The pasta at Bertucci's used to be generous and flavorful, but now many diners say the sauces lack depth and the dishes feel reheated rather than freshly made. Order their spaghetti and meatballs, and instead of juicy, tender meat with rich tomato sauce, you might get something that feels mass-produced, heavy on filler and light on seasoning. Alfredo dishes taste flat, leaning more on cream than real Parmesan flavor. Even the bread, once a strong point, has lost its charm when it arrives dry or overbaked. The restaurant atmosphere still tries to sell comfort, but the cracks show. Empty tables during peak hours, reduced menu options, and slower service tell a story of a chain past its prime. Where once there was excitement, now there is a sense of going through the motions. Price-wise, Bertucci's is not outrageous, but it is not cheap either. Meals often fall into the mid-teens, and when you are spending that much, you want something to remember. The disappointment is sharper because diners remember when it used to be better. Paying for a plate of nostalgia does not work when the food cannot back it up. Some longtime fans remain loyal. They say certain locations still deliver a brick oven flavor that hits the spot. Others claim the salads and rolls still hold value. But the chain as a whole has seen better days, and for pasta lovers, it is a gamble. Could Bertucci's recover? Possibly if it returned to focusing on quality over quantity. But until then, it sits in a frustrating middle ground. Not cheap enough for fast food, not good enough for special nights out. Do you think Bertucci's is still worth visiting for old times' sake? Or is nostalgia the only seasoning left on the menu? Sure, the decor screams fun, but the trolley ride ends with disappointment. Spaghetti Warehouse. Few pasta chains go for spectacle the way Spaghetti Warehouse does. Where else can you eat a plate of pasta while sitting in a trolley car or surrounded by antique chandeliers? The theme is fun, whimsical, and nostalgic, designed to make dinner feel like an event. Families love the novelty, kids enjoy the props, and first-time visitors get swept up in the excitement. But once the plates arrive, the show begins to crumble. The spaghetti, supposedly the star of the house, often arrives overcooked and lifeless. The sauce leans heavily on sweetness, lacking the slow-simmered richness that makes Italian food comforting. Meatballs, large enough to impress at first sight, can be dry and bland inside. The promise of hearty, satisfying Italian food gives way to the reality of oversized portions with little flavor. Part of the problem is scale. Spaghetti Warehouse tries to serve massive groups quickly. That means pre-cooked pasta reheated in batches, sauces kept warm for hours, and recipes simplified to survive mass production. What you lose in the process is care, freshness, and taste. What you get is a memory of the quirky decor but not the food. Price-wise, Spaghetti Warehouse plays in the family budget category. Large plates at reasonable prices attract groups, but the hidden cost is quality. Families may leave with full bellies but not full hearts. The experience feels more like a tourist attraction than a dining event. Fans might argue that the fun makes up for the flavor. Sitting in a trolley car while eating spaghetti is not something you can do anywhere else. Birthdays and group dinners become less about the food and more about the setting. But when the chain is judged against its name, the spaghetti part disappoints. Is there a saving grace? Some diners say the lasagna offers a better balance of cheese and sauce, making it a safer pick. Others recommend focusing on appetizers and treating the main meal as part of the scenery. But when pasta is the weakest link, the theme alone cannot carry the chain. Would you ever go back to Spaghetti Warehouse for the fun decor, even if the pasta left you cold? Trying to be the knockoff king of casual Italian left us with regret, not romance. Johnny Carino's. Johnny Carino's was once positioned as the answer to Olive Garden. The atmosphere aimed to be warm and rustic, with checkered tablecloths, open kitchens, and the promise of hearty Italian comfort food. On the surface, it had all the pieces: a menu full of classics, an inviting dining room, and prices that seemed fair for sit-down dining. But when you dug deeper, the illusion cracked. Take the pasta, for instance. Carino's likes to serve up oversized portions, but bigger is not always better. Their Alfredo feels heavy and one-note, coating noodles in cream without delivering real Parmesan flavor. Their tomato sauces lean toward acidity, sometimes tasting more like canned paste than fresh simmered herbs and garlic. Even the specialty dishes like skilletini pasta served in hot pans sound exciting but arrive greasy and inconsistent. The bread, a staple at any Italian-style restaurant, rarely impresses. Instead of crusty loaves baked with care, you often get soft rolls brushed with oil, meant more to fill you up than delight you. And the salads, though generously portioned, are loaded with toppings that feel like filler rather than fresh ingredients. The biggest disappointment is how the chain tries to copy the Olive Garden model, but without the consistency. At least Olive Garden offers predictability for better or worse. At Johnny Carino's, the experience can vary wildly from one visit to the next. Sometimes the pasta arrives lukewarm. Sometimes the meat is overcooked. Sometimes the flavors are so muted that diners joke about needing to bring their own spice rack. Price-wise, Johnny Carino's is not cheap enough to forgive its flaws. Meals often land in the $12 to $20 range, which is fair if the quality delivers. But when you pay that much and walk away with a memory of bland pasta and greasy sauce, it feels like wasted money. The value simply is not there. Some fans hold on to the nostalgia of Johnny Carino's. They remember when the chain felt lively and special, when it seemed like a place to celebrate a family milestone without breaking the bank. For those diners, loyalty lingers. But nostalgia can only carry a restaurant so far when the food does not back it up. Is there any way to hack Johnny Carino's? Some people say to stick with the soups or the occasional chicken dish. Others swear by the dessert menu, where the mistakes in the main course are softened by something sweet. But when the best advice for a pasta chain is to avoid the pasta, that tells you everything you need to know. Have you ever eaten at Johnny Carino's and felt like you were paying for Olive Garden's shadow instead of a meal of its own? Now for a winner where every plate feels like Sunday at Grandma's table, Maggiano's Little Italy. Step into Maggiano's and you feel an immediate difference. The lighting is warm, the tables are set with care, and the menu offers generous, family-style servings that make you feel like you are part of something bigger than a simple night out. It is one of the few pasta chains that still delivers on the promise of hearty, comforting Italian food at scale. The star here is the balance between portion size and flavor. Pastas arrive steaming hot, loaded with sauces that taste like they actually spent time simmering in the kitchen. Their marinara has layers of garlic, onion, and basil, not just sugar and salt. Their Alfredo tastes creamy and indulgent without turning into glue. Even dishes like baked ziti or lasagna, which so many chains ruin, feel homemade, with rich cheese pulls and the depth of seasoning that tells you someone cared about the recipe. Family-style dining is Maggiano's signature move. Order a dish for the table and it comes in a size that encourages sharing. That style alone makes the meal more memorable. Instead of each person picking at their own bland plate, everyone digs into bowls of pasta, passing plates around, just like at a family gathering. It creates the sense of tradition, even if you are nowhere near Italy. Price-wise, Maggiano's is not cheap, but it feels fair. A family-style meal might run $40 to $50, but it can feed more than 2 people easily. Individual plates fall into the $15 to $20 range, but the quality backs it up. Unlike other chains, you do not leave feeling shortchanged. You leave full, happy, and ready to come back. The atmosphere also helps. Maggiano's locations often have classic decor: dark wood, checkered floors, walls covered with photos of family gatherings. It leans into nostalgia in the best way, reminding people of Sunday dinners at Grandma's table, even if they never had an Italian grandmother. The combination of setting, food, and service makes the experience feel special. Can Maggiano's falter? Of course, not every plate will be perfect, and large chains always face challenges with consistency. But compared to most pasta chains, the gap between expectation and reality is much smaller. You are far more likely to leave satisfied than disappointed. Would you pick Maggiano's for a real family dinner? Or do you think chains can never capture that homemade feeling? And finally, a chaotic family-style spot that somehow makes the madness delicious. Buca di Beppo. Walking into Buca di Beppo is like walking into the loudest, most crowded family dinner you have ever attended. The walls are covered with quirky decorations, the rooms are filled with laughter and noise, and the plates are enormous. It is not subtle, it is not calm, and it is definitely not fancy. But somehow, the chaos works. The food here is built for sharing. Pasta dishes come in massive bowls, designed to feed a group rather than one person. Spaghetti with meatballs arrives with meatballs so large they could double as baseballs, sitting in a sauce that tastes richer than you expect from a chain. Alfredo and baked pastas are creamy and hearty, often leaving you with leftovers to take home. The flavors are not refined, but they are bold and satisfying. The charm of Buca di Beppo is that it does not try to be something it is not. It does not dress itself up as fine dining. It embraces the loud, messy, family-style identity fully. The pasta may not win awards for subtlety, but it delivers what it promises. Hearty food in large portions that bring people together. Price-wise, Buca di Beppo is built for groups. A dish that costs $20 to $30 might sound expensive at first, but when it feeds 3 or 4 people, the value becomes clear. For celebrations, birthdays, or even just a rowdy night out, the cost feels justified. Of course, the atmosphere is not for everyone. If you prefer quiet dinners, soft lighting, and calm conversation, this is not your place. But if you are looking for laughter, fun, and a meal that will leave you stuffed and smiling, Buca di Beppo delivers. Are there weak spots? Yes. Some dishes can feel oily, and not every pasta sings with flavor. But the overall experience usually makes up for the misses. Unlike many chains where the food is the disappointment, here the food and the fun combine into something memorable. Do you think a restaurant like Buca di Beppo is about the pasta itself? Or is the joy of eating together the real secret ingredient? And that is the full plate. Now tell me, which pasta chain do you secretly love or avoid like the plague? And while you are at it, drop your answer in the comments, give this video a thumbs up, and subscribe to the hidden menu for more bites worth debating.
And remember, the truth is not always on the menu.